Good morning. Welcome to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you're toking up and tuning in. I'm sitting here talking to my good friend Teresa Teran. How are you doing this morning?
I'm not bad, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, you are just one of the busiest people that I've come across in a long time.
Yeah, I'm always up to something. You know me.
Yes, ma'am. Now, we brought up the Mississippi 74 a while ago.
Yes.
Now, that's one of the deals that it's not in Oklahoma, but we are tracking it. Now, what all's happening down there in Mississippi?
Well, they had an initiative. It was Initiative 65, and they was done as an initiative petition. So they had to go and gather signatures, and follow all the rules on submitting it, and then the people vote on it. It goes on the ballot. Well, it went through the process. Went on the ballot, and they voted, and it passed by 74%.
74%.
Yes.
We had 57% here in Oklahoma. They had 74%. Okay, so they should just be on the board like us.
Well, they won in every county is what's crazy. But because of a technicality, what had happened is a mayor from Madison County, her name is Mary, she had filed a lawsuit saying that the signatures had been collected illegally, I guess. What happened is they had changed their districts. They went from having 5 districts to having 4 districts.
Now, the government did this. They changed the districts, correct?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And what's really crazy to me is that they still base a lot of things on the 5 districts, including, the justices.
Right.
They are all based on 5. So, I don't know if they're just picking and choosing.
Well, they are picking and choosing, in my opinion, because that's just such a tiny technicality.
I know, and what's really, really silly is that they kept saying, well, this isn't about medical marijuana.
You're right.
Well, I watched the whole the Supreme Court on when they had it live, and it just blew my mind at the way that this was going. I imagined one of those old, Perry Mason type movies, with a southern draw, and
You're right.
One of the justices was like, well, this initiative was such and such pages long. Yeah. You mean to tell me that every signature went through and read all of it? And I was, So, of course, the attorney, he was pretty quick on that, and he's like, well, you assume that when somebody signs a contract, which is basically the same concept,
same thing,
that they understand and have read the entire contents of the contract, or they wouldn't be able to sign it. So by those standards, they could question any contract in place, right? You can say, well, I didn't read it or understand it. But what was crazy is that the legislation wanted to give them an alternative for those that still wanted medical marijuana but did not want something that was as open as what Initiative 65 was, so they introduced Initiative 65A. It still passed, I think, don't quote me, but I think that it still passed by like 86%
really?
Of people that didn't vote for Initiative 65 still voted for Initiative 65A.
And got some more people.
Which shows that the large percentage of the voters were in favor of medical marijuana. So now what's happening is there was the We Are the 74, which was a group of people, which I technically could not be a part of We Are the 74 because I was not a voter, so I could not be the 74%. But I made a few connections just, in the process of me getting ready to go into Mississippi. I was talking to different people that were part of writing the regulations. I know that I had some friends, Leanne Bryson, who's genius when it comes to government. She'd made contact with some of the people that were part of the health department, and we'd reached out to a few legislators. So I was already in contact with people that, were not only leaning towards Initiative 65 being in place, but once it was struck down, then within 48 hours we had formed a working group to try to spread the message quickly and get people united in order to make phone calls to legislators and get media attention on this issue. And so the importance of the first 48 hours, as is trying to reach a large number of people in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do. That's why I say I love us. We live in the digital world, so we can get the word out to our people quick. And obviously in Mississippi, they got the word out pretty quick. They got the vote from 74% and fact checkers go crazy to 86%.
Right. Well, and the media was really interested in this because they had never seen a group organize as quickly as they had. I mean, there was websites, there was TikToks, there was Twitter, Instagram. Bethany Hill, I don't know if you've seen her around. She's done a few podcasts, and she's been on the news quite a few times, and her story was phenomenal. Like, she had moved to Oregon for 7 years because of her sickness.
She was a cannabis refugee. Yeah.
She was a cannabis refugee, and so I've got to meet a few families. Amy Smoot, she's gone and spoke at the Senate committee meeting. She's also part of our crew.
Right.
And she was on High Times, but she works with a lot of kids that have seizures.
Right.
That's kind of been her focus. So
I understand. Yeah.
There's 6 of us now, and we decided to get in more into what you're doing and doing the media side of it, because working with multiple groups, there's always different perspectives and different agendas and different ideas of what they see. And for us, what our main focus is just educating the public and letting them know what's going on and what their options are. Exactly.
That's education, getting it out there. Like I say, that's why we do so much of this media and podcasts and stuff, is get that education out there. Get it off that we're not just stoners sitting on a couch,
Yeah.
We do a lot more stuff than what people think.
Well, that's where, when I think of all of this, I think no patient left behind.
Right on.
And there's so many states that don't have an understanding of how cannabis really works, and they try to legislate in a way that fights a stigma. And that was one thing that I noticed in Mississippi, is they were kind of leaning towards being like Alabama, where they banned smokables.
Yeah.
And so I was able to talk to a few legislators about, different forms of ingestion and why they have the different methods and what it serves and for what purpose, basically.
Exactly, because there's a wide range of products, and that covers a lot of our patients. In our opinion, we've got to do the FDA disclaimer. This is all in our opinion. Yeah, there's no research, not a lot of research done on it. But on that right there, we're going to take a short break.
Empire Genetics is an advanced research program set forth under the 2018 Oklahoma Industrial Hemp Pilot Program, overseen by Northwestern Oklahoma State University. A lot of farmers reach out to us. They've heard about what we're doing and are interested and want to know what they've had growing on their land since they were kids. Oklahoma is very diverse in its weather system, and so these plants have adapted over the last several hundred years to withstand that. A lot of it was brought here by the U.S. Department of the Interior back as part of Hemp for Victory. Hemp for Victory was brought about with the loom of the coming World War. We knew that we were going to have to produce a very large amount of hemp to rig the ships for their sailing, for their ropes, for their anchors, also clothing, sailors' hats, our flags, everything was made from hemp. Marijuana wasn't made illegal until 1969. The USCSA classed marijuana in with other dangerous narcotics such as heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines. The campaign to slander cannabis began back in the 20s, mainly with William Randolph Hearst and the paper mills. Then that transgressed into big oil later in the 30s and 40s, really gained steam. By late 1937, the Congress passed the Marijuana Tax Act, which grouped industrial hemp in with marijuana. After that, they gave the differentiated names hemp, marijuana. While farmers were still allowed to grow, taxes were raised so heavily that it made it difficult, especially for lower income farmers. In 1940, when Hemp for Victory came to Oklahoma, they actually used Oklahoma as a test plot. Several genetics were shipped in from all around the world to see what would grow best on American soil, since Oklahoma has such a diverse climate. And it's very hard to find a lot of documentation on that. We know there was a lot of places, obviously, that were involved, or we wouldn't be finding cannabis in every county in Oklahoma. Hempire Genetics, sowing the seeds of the past to grow a better future for everyone. Visit us at HempireGenetics.com or on our social media pages at Hempire Genetics.
Good morning. Welcome back to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you're toking up and tuning in, because I sure have. Sitting here talking to my good friend Teresa Teran, and we're talking about Mississippi right now, man.
Yes.
Mercy sakes.
Well, it's been a lot of work in Mississippi, that's for sure. Just being around all the different people and all the different personalities and dynamics, but seeing how everybody brings something different. We're starting a media group. I might have mentioned that earlier, MCNN, which is
Right.
Mississippi Cannabis News Network.
I like that. Cool.
And it kind of just came to us because we had a working group in the beginning, and of course we kind of went our separate ways. One of the main reasons is I couldn't be as actively involved in representing the We Are the 74,
Right.
and I was from a different state, so I didn't want to be the reason people fought, you know.
Right.
And so some people didn't like that, but they really didn't know that I had been around, you know, prior to all of this. And so there's 6 of us. Zach Wilson, he's a guns and ammo guy.
Oh, okay, cool.
But he's so funny that he's going to do the comedy aspect of it, put together a few skits, just kind of
Okay.
get everybody engaged. Then Amy Smoot is going to do the patient stories. We have Heather Gum. She is one of the hype girls, is what we call them.
Okay.
Yeah, HIGH, hype.
That's
And
cool.
so she's mostly going to focus, I think, on businesses and seeing what different ones are going to be doing. Bethany, she's more of I guess you could call her the Barbara Walters. She'll get to sit down and interview different legislators, and she's gone on a few podcasts. She does it, you know, she's pretty well rounded. She has a political science background, so she understands.
That is
a lot
cool.
of-
You've
yeah.
got quite a group there, because that bringing everybody together. That's why I say in the cannabis industry, we've got a lot of really creative people and a lot of really
Right.
sharp people.
Well, yeah. Well, we also have Chad King, which, oh my God, he's so darling. Like, he is just such a wonderful, pure-hearted person, but he's an attorney.
Okay, cool.
And so he was really involved in writing of Initiative 65. So he has that background. He'll be able to give us legal advice, or not legal advice, but legal ideas, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. But he is going to be doing the legal limit, is what we call it. So that'll
That's
be
what
fun.
gets me, is that the different laws in different states. That's why I want to go for federal legalization.
Well, and what I've been seeing on what they're saying on federal legalization is that they're still going to leave a lot of it up to the states. So we
Yeah.
could see where it's federally legal. And
Well, and not really legal, just decriminalized, move from a
Right.
class 1.
yeah, well,
And that
We've
gets
got-
into a whole different
it
discussion,
does.
doesn't it?
It really does, because you know I'm hardcore on the research side.
I know you are.
And so we've seen a lot of changes in research just now. In my opinion, I don't see anything changing federally until they figure out the banking.
Exactly.
Because if they can't figure out
How they can get their money.
Right, or how to even agree. That's our biggest issue, has been like, can they just agree on something? And then when they do agree on something, there's that one group or that one person that wants to put in that one piece that makes it so impossible for everybody to support.
I know, we try to come together, and you try to work with legislators and stuff, and then there's that, like you say, that one legislator who wants to put that one little word or one little line in there, and it just throws the whole
It
thing.
does. It's like throwing ketchup all over a birthday cake.
Exactly. That's a great scenario. I love that. That's exactly what it's like.
And unfortunately, there's people that like ketchup on cake, you know?
That's one of the things I have never tried, ma'am.
Well, I don't think I'm going to start doing that, and I'm not going to do it in legislation either.
No,
So.
no. I've been supporting Mississippi and everything. I'm like you, though. I'm not a voter down in Mississippi, so I can only do so much. But trying to get their story out, because mercy, this needs to be handled down there.
Well, you know, the way it's looking, and from what I've been hearing from legislators there, and, you know, not me directly, but indirectly, because a lot of our crew, they have been very, very actively involved in reaching out to anyone that they can. That
Yeah,
I'm going to say it's about a 97% chance that they are going to go ahead and call a special session.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah.
And so Senator Blackwell, he has been working on a bill. From what he says, he's about finished with it, and then it's got to go to the House and get approval there. He's been very, 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 very helpful, and he has been so open. Now, he had a lot of criticism because he had submitted a bill, and it just was very, very harsh when it comes to small business. But you know how it is when they first file
Exactly,
something.
when
It never
Connie
ends
Johnson
up,
found that out.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, they're going to give you the worst case scenario.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
they're just going to try to get their foot in there so that they can get it past the first point, and then the moment of negotiation takes place. And this happens in our state as well. So offering them a little bit of reassurance, saying, hey, listen, don't give up.
Don't give up. That's
Because
it.
if you don't voice your opinion and you don't become part of the process, then things are going to pass, and then you're going to be reactive rather than proactive.
That's what we say too, is there's so many people behind the scenes. We couldn't do this if people didn't support us.
No, we couldn't. And there's so many, and besides me, besides them, there's multiple people that go to them, everybody with their own opinion. And you never know what their intention is with their opinion. You don't know what agendas are there. You don't know what lobbyist got in there before you did
Right.
and convinced them of, hey, this is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we have done very effectively here in Oklahoma. You and I
Exactly.
can vouch for this, is that
Yeah, we've talked to several legislators together.
right,
Yeah.
yes, we have. And so when we give those different opinions, sometimes they're like, I didn't think of it in that way. And they don't, because they're not in it.
Yeah, I said we think that everybody knows what we know on cannabis and everything, and it comes down to a lot of people don't have a clue about cannabis or CBD, CBN, CBG.
Right.
You've got to educate them on the entire spectrum.
Absolutely.
Okay, on that right there, we're going to take another short break. You're watching Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you're toking up and tuning in. Welcome back to Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I'm sitting here talking to my good friend Teresa Teran. How you doing? We've been covering a great subject here too.
Oh man, it's been wonderful. You've kind of just let me go with it, and I appreciate that, because
Well,
there's
you've
just so
got
much
such
information.
a good subject, yeah.
It's been exciting. Like, I've really been involved, and just love the story that's unfolding with the people and how great they came together. Like, that just was such a beautiful thing.
Because we've talked about Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. We've talked about several different states. We didn't cover Texas on the air, but we talked about Texas. I am so glad I live in Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma.
Oh man, we have so much freedom here, and when you compare it to other states, you're just blown away by how much freedom we have, just with our medical program.
Right, because we just said, Louisiana just okayed smokables?
Yeah, Louisiana went smokables. I told you that Representative Nelson had a bill that he'd submitted, HB 699. It didn't make it through, but he's going to, from what he says, is resubmit next year. So we might be seeing some recreational in the South.
Well, there you go. We're breaking the Bible Belt. Cool, I love it.
Oh, when you think about the closest recreational state being Illinois or Colorado, it just makes me wonder why the South hasn't, caught up to this.
Well, it just turns down to the legislatures and, in my opinion, the verbiage of recreational as opposed to adult use.
Well, it is just, it's in the terminology, absolutely. But one of the things that I did bring up to one of the legislators was this. You can ban smokables, you can ban flower, but flower has been there since before it was legal. Anytime you thought about, hey, I want to purchase cannabis, you knew where to go and where to find it. So banning smokables doesn't keep it out of your state.
Right.
Banning smokables keeps you from taxing it.
Right.
So then you ask this question. Smokables are going to be in your state. Do you want the tax money from it, or do you not?
Because we always want to protect our home grow, too.
Absolutely. No. And that's the thing that you see is we do have home grow, but you don't see a lot of people home growing. And
a
I
lot
want
of people
people
don't know how to home grow.
Well, I want people to home grow because then they
Exactly.
appreciate what we do.
Yeah.
And they're
They
like,
appreciate it.
you know, maybe this is harder than I thought.
It's a lot harder than you think.
And it is very hard. You know, I've been 3 years operational. I don't really talk about my business very
Right.
much, but you know, I've T3 Cannovation is 3rd year operational. Well, 2nd year operational. 1st year was build out, but I
Right.
did go in and get my license 2018. So renewal has been interesting and just seeing the entire program lay out.
And like we've talked about before, you do some research and you do some cloning, you do some matching of plants and stuff. And we talked about it's very frustrating for them to get up about this tall and die.
Well, my mother's my grower.
Oh, really?
My mom's
Okay.
and so she's been there from the very beginning, and so she's always done a certain level of gardening, and she grew up a farm girl.
Right.
She knew everything about it, so she didn't really know cannabis. But her clones, I mean, she gets about 97% that make it.
Cool.
Of course, they grow and they're not all pretty, and then we're just like, well, we want these and we don't want those. But
Yeah.
I mean, she's a beast. Like, I'm so proud of her. Like, I
Cool.
love saying my mom grows better weed than you.
That is so funny. I do love it. Yeah, rock on. Okay, and what's the name of your farm?
T3 Cannovation.
T3 Cannovation. Cool.
Yes.
And you're working on some specific strains there too, aren't you?
I am. I'm kind of on a terpene hunt.
Oh, I love terpenes. You know how I love terpenes.
I know you do. And learning how they work and how they interact with other terpenes, finding out when's the best time to harvest and, you know, what the temperature and environment needs to be for those terpenes. That's been challenging because in the beginning, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, you know, shooting in the dark and seeing what I figured out. And then with testing, you can't really count on it all the time. So that's been a challenge in itself, is just getting the right testing.
Getting the right testing. Now, you've got to go through the whole process. It's a little different for every plant, every strain. Temperature of soil, just that's what we talk about home grow.
Well, I'm a hydro grower.
Okay.
So more of it, and my mom could tell you more because she's kind of figured it out. And I don't know if she's figured it out or she's convinced herself that if she doesn't do it, then it's just not going to go great. And I'll be like, do you want me to feed? And she'll be like, no, the girls will be mad if I don't come.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. There you go. You do get that attachment.
So maybe it's
to
a love.
plants.
I mean, I think it's a love, and she's put a lot of herself into it. And I don't know if you can teach that.
Exactly. You know what I really do, because I do go to some grows, and what I like is just before the lights come on in the grows, you can see the plants getting ready for, because they get used to it coming on at a certain time. You say, okay, yeah, it's fixing to come on. Here it is.
Yeah, like they anticipate that.
They anticipate. It's so cool.
We used to play music in there, and we didn't really have good internet at the time, so we kind of relied on radio stations. And on Sundays, they would play gospel music, and the plants would just fall down. And my mom would like, look at the plants, look, they're mad. She's like, you need to change the station. And we would change the station, and then, of course, they'd get back up. And she'd be like, oh, look, they're happy now. Like, they just didn't like gospel music. She was convinced.
It's to each their own. You never know.
Well, they like that upward kind of, and this was just very slow. Like, so you think Southern gospel, they just were like,
oh, yeah.
they're children,
Yeah, and, okay, teenagers, so they probably like a little bit of rock.
They do. They like rock. I have a whole playlist that I play in there, and then sometimes I do karaoke. Yeah, turn on some music and just sing to the plants.
Now, that is so much fun. I love that. That is cool. Yeah. Okay, now, I would love to incorporate something like that. We could teach people to do karaoke, because we got a lot of people that do karaoke.
Yeah.
Okay, start singing to your plants. I don't know how many people sing to your plants, but hey, cool, let's do it. On singing to your plants, we're going to end that today. I've been talking to my good friend Teresa Teran from
Lindsay, Oklahoma, at T3 Cannovation.
T3 Cannovation. Okay, I'm from Chickasha. We're real close.
Yeah, I know. Well, my grow's in Blanchard. So.
Well, there you go. All right, you've been watching Wake and Bake with Old School and Co. I hope you toke up and tune back in.
Set me sign to the bond is on Water whipping, water dripping. Broke the pack, mixed it with the midget.